Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Have you ever said something in English that you thought was a hilarious joke, only to look up and see everyone staring at you in complete horror? In today's story, we are following Lucas. He just landed his dream job in a new country, but on his very first week, a single misunderstood English phrase turns a friendly office dinner into a career nightmare. He deeply offends his strict new boss, Mr. Harrison, and suddenly his entire future is on the line. How do you fix a massive cultural misunderstanding when your English isn't perfect? And how do you win back someone's trust after a total disaster? As we watch Lucas deal with this real-life problem, we are going to learn essential English vocabulary for professional apologies, idioms about communication, and the crucial difference between friendly banter and deep disrespect. Grab a notebook, pay close attention to the dialogue, and let's find out how Lucas tries to save his job in the Cultural Misunderstanding. Lucas stared at the gleaming glass tower of Harrison Marketing in the heart of London. His chest swelled with pride. He had actually done it. Moving to a new country was a massive gamble, but landing a spot at this prestigious firm made every sleepless night worth it. Today was day one. Lucas was confident in his English. He knew the grammar rules and had a solid vocabulary. However, during his first few days, he noticed something intimidating: British humor. His colleagues traded lightning-fast, dry, sarcastic remarks that often left him smiling politely while feeling completely left out. "If you want to survive here, mate, you need a bit of banter," his desk neighbor Marcus joked on Wednesday. Lucas took the advice to heart. He didn't just want to be the quiet, hard-working immigrant. He wanted to blend in, to be seen as witty and relatable. That evening, he stayed up late watching British comedies and browsing social media forums, writing down slang words and idioms. He memorized phrases he thought would make him sound like a local. By Friday, Lucas felt ready. He had a notebook filled with clever expressions, and he was eager for a chance to use them. He just needed the right moment to show everyone that he understood the culture, that he was one of them. The perfect opportunity arrived that afternoon when an email landed in his inbox from HR. Mr. Harrison, the strict and notoriously traditional managing director, was hosting a formal welcome dinner for the new team members. That evening, Lucas smiled, adjusting his tie. This was his moment to shine. The mahogany dining room at the restaurant was elegant and suffocatingly quiet. Lucas sat near the end of the long table, smoothing his napkin over his knees. Around him, senior executives spoke in low, hushed tones while waiters poured wine. At the head of the table sat Mr. Harrison, looking sharp and intimidating in a dark tailored suit. As the main course was cleared, Mr. Harrison stood up, tapping his glass with a spoon to gather everyone's attention. He began a traditional speech talking about the company's long history, its strict core values, and its reliance on time-tested methods. Lucas listened intently, waiting for his chance to show he could participate in the office culture. When Mr. Harrison wrapped up his speech by saying, "We build our future on the heavy foundations of the past," the room offered polite applause. Lucas saw his opening. He wanted to offer a light-hearted, witty compliment using a trendy phrase he had found online. He raised his glass, smiled warmly, and said loudly across the quiet room, "To Mr. Harrison, for keeping our methods delightfully ancient and running the company like a true dinosaur." Lucas chuckled, expecting a wave of appreciative dry British chuckles to follow. Instead, the entire room froze. A heavy, suffocating silence dropped over the table like a lead weight.
Marcus stared at his plate in absolute horror, and another colleague gasped softly. Lucas's smile faltered as he looked at the head of the table. Mr. Harrison's face had turned completely pale, his eyes narrowing into cold slits as he stared directly at Lucas. To Mr. Harrison, a man who prided himself on modernization and leadership, the comment wasn't a harmless joke. It was a public insult, accusing him of being obsolete, stubborn, and incompetent. "Thank you for your unique perspective," Mr. Harrison said, his voice dripping with icy sarcasm. He set his glass down with a sharp click, turned his back on Lucas, and immediately began a private conversation with the executive next to him. Lucas felt the blood drain from his face as a cold sweat broke out across his neck. He had wanted to blend in, but he had just insulted the most powerful man in the company.
Lucas did not sleep a single wink all weekend. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the sharp click of Mr. Harrison's glass hitting the table and felt the suffocating silence of the dining room. On Monday morning, he arrived at the office an hour early, his heart hammering against his ribs. He walked straight to his desk, hoping to bury himself in the massive quarterly marketing project he had been assigned last week. When he opened his email inbox, however, a message from his project manager was waiting for him. The email was brief and formal, stating that Lucas had been reassigned to basic data entry to the administrative pool, effective immediately. His access to the main project files had already been revoked. Lucas felt a cold wave of panic wash over him. He immediately opened a new email draft, carefully writing a polite message to Mr. Harrison to request a brief meeting to explain himself. He hit send, but by lunchtime there was no reply. By the end of the afternoon, his email remained completely ignored. The isolation wasn't just digital, it was physical. When Lucas walked into the break room to grab a coffee, his colleagues suddenly stopped talking. Marcus, who had been so friendly the week before, offered a tight, forced smile and quickly remembered an urgent phone call he had to make. No one invited Lucas to lunch, and no one stopped by his desk to ask about his weekend. In a matter of seconds on Friday night, Lucas had gone from a rising star to a ghost in his own office. He sat alone at his desk, staring at spreadsheets of raw data, realizing the terrifying weight of his mistake. He wasn't just struggling with a new language anymore. He was fighting for his professional survival in a country where he had no safety net.
By Tuesday afternoon, the silence at Lucas's desk was too heavy to bear. He knew he couldn't fix this problem alone, so he decided to seek help. During the afternoon break, he knocked softly on the door of Sarah, a friendly HR specialist who had helped him with his relocation paperwork. Sarah looked up from her computer, saw the deep exhaustion and panic in Lucas's eyes, and closed her office door to give them privacy. Lucas sat down and explained everything, his voice trembling slightly as he detailed the dinner, the online phrase he had copied, and the cold treatment he was now receiving. Sarah listened patiently, nodding as the pieces of the puzzle came together. "Lucas, you need to understand that in British corporate culture, hierarchy and respect are handled with a very delicate balance," Sarah explained gently. "We do love banter, but true banter requires a high level of mutual trust and relationship history, which you don't have yet with the managing director." She explained that by calling Mr. Harrison a dinosaur in front of the entire team, Lucas hadn't sounded witty. He had sounded publicly insubordinate and deeply disrespectful. "But that wasn't my intention at all," Lucas protested, burying his face in his hands. "I thought it meant he was an established, unstoppable force, like a classic giant." Sarah offered a sympathetic but firm smile, highlighting a painful truth about learning a new language. In communication, Lucas, intent does not equal impact, she said. It doesn't matter what you meant to say, what matters is how your audience received it, and right now, Mr. Harrison receives you as a liability. Lucas realized that his textbook English and internet slang had blinded him to the real nuances of human connection, and he needed a totally new strategy to fix it.
Sarah's words echoed in Lucas's mind as he sat at his kitchen table that evening, a blank document open on his laptop. He knew he couldn't let another day pass without trying to repair the damage. He began to type, but his first few drafts were a disaster. He kept writing phrases like, "I am sorry, but I only meant to make a joke," or "There was a language misunderstanding on my part." Reading them back, he realized they sounded defensive, like he was making excuses for his behavior instead of taking ownership. The next morning, he brought a printed draft to Sarah's office during his morning break. Sarah scanned the lines, crossed out several sentences with a red pen, and looked up at him. "Lucas, a professional apology in English must be direct, concise, and focused entirely on your mistake, not your intentions," she advised. Together, they stripped away the emotional explanations and crafted a precise, formal message. The final version read, "Dear Mr. Harrison, I want to sincerely apologize for my inappropriate comment during Friday's dinner. I deeply regret my lack of judgment and understand that my words were disrespectful to your leadership and the company values. I take full responsibility for the offense caused and am committed to proving my dedication to the team through my work moving forward. Sincerely, Lucas." Lucas took a deep breath and hit the send button at exactly 9 o'clock. For hours, his inbox remained completely silent, causing his stomach to twist into tight knots. Finally, at 4 in the afternoon, a notification popped up on his screen. It was a reply from Mr. Harrison. The message was brief. "Thank you for the note, Lucas. Let's keep our relationship strictly professional moving forward." Lucas leaned back in his chair, exhaling a long breath. The door to his career hadn't been completely slammed shut, but he knew he was starting from absolute zero. The weeks that followed were the quietest weeks of Lucas's life. He arrived at the office early every morning, kept his head down, and focused entirely on his assigned data entry tasks. He made a conscious decision to stop trying to be the funniest or loudest person in the room. Instead of speaking, Lucas decided to listen. He used his time to study the subtle communication patterns of his colleagues, paying close attention to how they phrased emails, delivered constructive feedback, and navigated disagreements with clients. He learned that a simple, polite good morning or a quiet thank you carried far more professional weight than a forced slang phrase. However, staying silent was not easy. While Lucas spent his days organizing spreadsheets and double-checking numbers, his peers were actively collaborating on the massive international marketing campaign he had originally been assigned to. He had to sit quietly and watch Marcus and the others present ideas to senior management, receiving praise and taking credit for the work. Occasionally, a colleague would hand Lucas a stack of printing or ask him to format a document, treating him like an intern rather than an experienced marketer. Lucas felt a deep, frustrating sting in his chest every single time, but he resisted the urge to complain. He reminded himself that trust takes years to build, but only a few seconds to destroy. He poured all his energy into making sure his data entry work was absolutely flawless, hoping that his silent dedication would eventually speak louder than his disastrous joke. One Tuesday morning, the quiet routine of the office was shattered by an urgent, tense atmosphere. Lucas noticed senior managers hurrying into the main conference room, their faces pale and strained. Through the glass walls, he could see Mr. Harrison pacing back and forth, waving a document in his hand with visible frustration. Marcus walked out of the room a few minutes later, looking completely defeated, and Lucas pulled him aside to ask what was wrong. "It's the Martinez Group, our biggest new international client," Marcus whispered, rubbing his temples in stress. "There has been a massive communication breakdown with our local team regarding the launch strategy, and they just threatened to pull their entire multi-million-dollar account by the end of the day." Because the client was based in South America, Lucas instantly recognized the root of the problem. The marketing campaign's tone was too aggressive and literal, completely missing the cultural nuances of that region. He knew exactly how to rephrase the entire strategy to respect the client's cultural values while maintaining the campaign's core message. This was a major crisis for the firm, but for Lucas, it was a sudden, unexpected window of opportunity. He hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding, as he remembered Mr. Harrison's strict command to keep their relationship purely professional. If he stayed silent, the company would lose its biggest client. If he spoke up, he risked angering his boss even further. Taking a deep breath, Lucas gathered his notes, walked straight to Mr. Harrison's office, and knocked firmly on the door. Mr. Harrison looked up from his laptop, his eyes narrowing coldly as he saw Lucas standing on the threshold.
"Come in," Mr. Harrison said, his voice flat and tight with stress. Lucas walked inside, holding his notes firmly, and stood before the large mahogany desk. "Mr. Harrison, I know the Martinez Group is about to pull their account, and I know exactly why they're walking away," Lucas said, keeping his tone calm and steady. Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms with a look of heavy skepticism. "And why should I listen to your perspective on communication, Lucas?" Mr. Harrison asked, the reminder of the dinner incident hanging heavily in the air. Lucas did not flinch. He took a deep breath and focused entirely on the facts. "Because the Martinez Group is from my home region, and the current slogan our team sent them translates to something incredibly demanding and rude in their local business culture," Lucas explained, laying his notes on the desk. He showed Mr. Harrison how a simple adjustment in the vocabulary could shift the tone from an aggressive demand to a collaborative partnership, perfectly matching the client's expectations. Mr. Harrison looked at the notes, his sharp eyes scanning Lucas's precise corrections and the elegant English translations beside them. The room was silent for a moment before Mr. Harrison looked up, his expression unreadable. "The client has scheduled a final video call in exactly 10 minutes to terminate the contract," Mr. Harrison said, checking his watch. "I will give you 5 minutes on that call to pitch this adjustment. If you fail, you ruin our reputation completely, but if you succeed, you save the account." Lucas nodded, his pulse racing as he realized the intense pressure resting on his shoulders. He had precisely 5 minutes to prove that he finally understood how to bridge the gap between two different worlds. The video conference screen lit up, revealing the stern faces of the Martinez Group's executive board. Mr. Harrison offered a formal greeting, introduced Lucas, and immediately handed over the floor. Lucas felt the intense weight of the moment, but as he began to speak, his nervous energy transformed into complete focus. Instead of using flashy idioms or trying to be clever, Lucas spoke with absolute clarity, precision, and deep professional respect.
He walked the clients through the revised marketing strategy, explaining how the new English phrasing perfectly aligned with their regional values of community and long-term partnership. As Lucas spoke, the tense expressions on the screen began to soften, and the lead executive slowly started to nod in agreement. By the end of the 5-minute pitch, the client smiled, thanked Lucas for his exceptional cultural insight, and officially agreed to sign the multi-million-dollar contract. After the call ended, Mr. Harrison sat in silence for a moment, then looked up and said, "My office, Lucas, now." Lucas walked into the executive suite, preparing himself for whatever feedback was coming, but this time his head was held high. "You saved the account, and you did it with remarkable professionalism," Mr. Harrison said, his voice softer than usual. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," Lucas replied smoothly, "and I want to say directly that I am truly sorry for my behavior a few weeks ago. I have learned that words hold great weight, and I respect your leadership deeply." Mr. Harrison gave a slow, genuine nod. "Apology accepted, Lucas. Welcome back to the main team." 2 months later, the atmosphere in the main conference room was completely different. The team was celebrating the successful global launch of the Martinez Group campaign, and the room was filled with laughter and relaxed chatter. Lucas stood near the window, a glass of sparkling water in his hand, watching his colleagues mingle. He was no longer a ghost in the office. His desk was once again covered in major project files, and his opinion was highly valued by the team. Marcus walked over, clinking his glasses against Lucas's with a bright smile. "Brilliant job on the quarterly report presentation yesterday, Lucas. You absolutely nailed it," Marcus said warmly. "Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate the teamwork that got us here," Lucas replied with a genuine smile. Just then, Mr. Harrison walked into the room to join the celebration, and the crowd parted slightly to welcome him. He walked straight toward Lucas, holding a tray of traditional British mince pies. "Lucas, would you care for one? I assure you the recipe is delightfully ancient," Mr. Harrison said, a tiny, dry smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. The surrounding colleagues chuckled softly, recognizing the gentle reference to the infamous dinner incident. Lucas felt a flash of recognition, but this time he didn't panic or try to use internet slang to look clever. He smiled politely, looked Mr. Harrison straight in the eye, and responded smoothly, "I would love one, Mr. Harrison, because, as I have learned, some classic traditions simply cannot be replaced." Mr. Harrison laughed, a warm and approving sound, and patted Lucas firmly on the shoulder before moving on to speak with the other executives. Lucas took a bite of the pastry, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had finally realized that mastering English wasn't about knowing the most idioms or being the loudest person in the room. It was about listening, reading the room, and understanding the delicate human connection behind every single word. He had found his voice in a new country, and this time he knew exactly how to use it.
What a journey for Lucas! It is amazing how much a single word or phrase can completely change the direction of our lives, especially when we are working in a second language. But as Lucas showed us, mistakes happen to everyone. The real magic is in how we listen, adapt, and respect the cultural nuances of the people around us. If you loved watching Lucas turn his biggest professional nightmare into his greatest victory, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a major cultural misunderstanding or said the wrong thing by accident? Drop your stories in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Don't forget to check out the description box for a breakdown of today's key professional vocabulary, idioms, and apology phrases so you can practice using them correctly. Thank you so much for watching. Keep practicing your English, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.